Hello and welcome to Life on Hard Mode, which is going to be my slice of life disabled video series that I'm going to do. And it's going to be a mixture of videos where you see how I have to do things, or people in general in chairs have to do things, and others like this today where I will be discussing various aspects of disabled life. And today's video is simply the story of how I became disabled, because that is one of the frequently asked questions when I do my live shows. The most frequently asked question. And instead of constantly answering that question and telling my story 10,000 times, I would rather just get the big gist of it out of the way here in this video and redirect those questions to here so that those live shows can be used for, other more in-depth questions. So without further ado, how am I disabled? If you've never seen me before, I am what you call a double amputee. On the right side, I'm an above knee amputee, and on the left side, I'm what you call a hip dysarticulate amputee, which means that they remove the entirety of my left leg. There's nothing left. It's just, when you look at it in an x-ray, it's just pelvis. On October 2nd, 2014, I was cycling to work. It was about 6:45 in the morning, and I had been doing that for about 2 months in order to lose weight and save money. Today was different, that day was different. I was cycling along, and I guess I hit a patch of bad road, and it crumbled underneath my bicycle wheel, and that caused me to lose balance just enough. I tilted to the left and wobbled, and that was enough. That changed everything. I was sideswiped by what I perceived to be something green and knocked to the ground. When I tried to sit up, I was hit by something else. I perceived that I was hit anyway. And when I became aware of my situation, I felt grass under this arm. I tried to pull myself off the road, and as soon as I moved, that's when the pain hit. The pain was extraordinary. I distinctly remember things moving inside of me, like these weird, dense, like clacking noises inside of my intestinal area. All I could do until the ambulance got there was to scream. There are levels of pain out there that your humanity gets shut off, and all you can do is become a howling animal on the side of the road. You are completely absorbed by your pain. It is that extraordinarily bad. And so that's what I did. I remember that there were people all around me trying to soothe me, trying to help me, all kinds of stuff. But I don't remember what any of them looked like or anything like that. I just remember how much it hurt and how badly I wanted it to not hurt anymore. And how much I thought I was going to die, because it was that level of pain. The movies always express that, after a certain threshold of pain, you kind of pass out. And maybe that threshold exists, but I didn't experience it. I was conscious through the whole thing. And the pain was all encompassing. It was everything. And I didn't pass out. So the ambulance finally gets there. I get loaded up, and they shoot me up with morphine. Pain washes away, and I call my boss, and I call my then girlfriend. Explain the situation. Off to the hospital I go. And at the hospital, I remember my doctor saying, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. We're going to get you patched up. We're going to put you down for surgery, and that'll be that. Don't worry. And I went to sleep, and I didn't wake up for a month. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and backtrack, and I'm going to explain to you what actually happened when I was out there. So the first car was indeed a sideswipe. The green flash I saw was a green Mustang. It sideswiped me and pushed me to the ground. Now, on the second hit, what I perceived to be a hit, I was wrong. It was actually a lifted truck that was right behind the green Mustang, and it ran me over. I went underneath the wheels, and it caught my legs. And I was at an angle that when it caught my legs, it ground them against the gravel, and it shoved this one, my right leg, through my pelvis, drove my femur right up through my pelvis, shattered my pelvis, and drove all those bone fragments into me. So that's the pain I was feeling. My own femur and, shattered pelvis were impaling me. So now you know. Now, what happened at the hospital diverges. And there's going to be a second video to explain this part, which is what I went through in my anesthetic coma. This video is for the physical part in the real world. As for this part, I'll just explain to you that I was in here the entire time, and it was horrible. It's a lot of nightmares, torture, death, looping and looping and looping and looping. And we'll get to that in another video because it's a long discussion. As for what was happening in the real world, they pulled my leg out, my right leg out of my pelvis, had it anchored with weights, and I guess the surgery went okay. They started stitching back my pelvis, all that stuff. Surgery, yay, except for one thing. They caused something called compartment syndrome, which happens when there's an invasive surgery or you're impaled by something or whatever. When you close back up, sometimes a little pocket of air gets left behind. And that fills up with fluid, and that fluid turns necrotic, i.e. it dies. And that turns into horrifying infection. And that's what happened to me. After the surgery, I had a pocket somewhere inside of me. That pocket filled with fluid, fluid died, turned necrotic, infection. My whole body puffed up 3 times its size. I looked like a meaty marshmallow melting in the sun. I had to be kept down. They couldn't allow me to wake up. I was so inflamed my eyeballs were bulging out of my head to the point that my eyelids were forced open. And there's a picture of me where it looks like I'm looking into the camera. I'm not conscious. I'm barely alive. I'm almost dead. It's just that I'm puffed out that badly. They had to split me from here all the way up to here. They split me open because the pressure was building so badly that the skin was threatening to just rip. And it killed 100% of the tissue in my left leg. My left leg became a house for infection, and that was it. My organs were shutting down. I was going to die. I was absolutely 100% going to die. My family was brought in to say goodbye. The doctor said there's a 2% chance we can save him if we take his left leg. All of it. My then girlfriend was the one that had to sign off on that decision. They took my entire left leg and 60% of the muscle out of my right leg. I still had my right leg. But removing 60% of the muscle tissue from a leg renders it useless. So that's how I woke up. After I puffed up, after they took the leg, that 2% chance, I won the world's worst lottery. I began to, lose my inflammation. My body, aside from the weight I had lost from the removal of my left leg and most of the muscle tissue from my right, I'd lost an additional 90 some odd pounds just from my body fighting the infection. So when I woke up, I wasn't puffy. I was gaunt. You could see my ribs. My skin would just kind of hang in like curtains off of my arms because it was just bone, so atrophied. I was weak. very weak. I could barely lift my arms. I couldn't really use my fingers. I couldn't talk because I was still eating, drinking, and breathing. I was cathetered. I had a colostomy. I had tubes running out of my wounds. Every kind of tube and wire you could think of, I had it. And I still had to go through surgeries. I went through, I think, 3 more surgeries after I had woke up. Over a dozen when I was down. And so from there began a very lengthy road to recovery. It took a week before they took that out and I could put this thing in here so I could talk. It was like a little plug. And eventually I could tape that over and I could just talk. First I couldn't talk. I had to write letters with hands that didn't work. I couldn't open a can of soda. I couldn't lift my arms up like this. There was so much I couldn't do. I got tired just from laying in my bed, which I was bedridden for 3 months. And then the last month I spent in rehab, which they got me out of my chair and, sorry, not out of my chair, out of my bed. And I practiced rolling around. I practiced strength training at first with balloons filled with air, just throwing them back and forth. And that would exhaust me. That would exhaust me. Just a balloon. Sometimes it's hard to think about where you came from. Even after it's been years now, and I still it's difficult to go back there, in my headspace. So 3 months hospitalization, very basic rehab. 1 month more intense rehab, still not as intense as it got. They tried to give me an electric chair. I got a manual. I demanded a manual. I came home still weak. I look like a crackhead. I was so weak and gaunt, and I looked like I just survived cancer, barely. Which I guess, after a fashion, I kind of did. I stared down death and I won. And I had this little girl waiting for me at home, this little daughter. She was a little over 1 at that point, and I hadn't seen her except for once while I was in the hospital. And she didn't know me. Why would she? She hadn't seen me in months, and she was 6 months old when I went to the hospital, so she didn't, her brain wasn't operating at a memory level yet, so she didn't know me. And I was prepped to give up. I was prepped to just take opiates. Doctors are throwing them at me anyway. Nobody would judge me. Just take opiates forever. Just give up. Because I used to be seen as the big, tough guy, the pillar. I used to be seen as intimidating. I wasn't trying to be intimidating. I just looked that way, I guess. I was seen as like a man. And I despise be a man culture. I despise machismo and all that horse shit that goes into it. But I didn't realize how much I actually leaned on it as part of my identity. I was no longer strong. I was quite weak. I couldn't do anything myself anymore. I needed so much help. My fierce independence, gone. Constantly needing help. Constantly, I would go and try to do things myself and break down crying when I realized I needed help for simple things that I didn't even think twice about. Going to the bathroom was hard. Putting on clothes was hard. Everything was hard. Getting into bed was hard. Being with my little girl, not hard. I was willing to hurt in order to hold her. I was willing to put myself in great pain to get on the floor with her. I read to her every single night, just like before the accident. Every night. And I remember this one moment that changed everything. She, to anybody outside, it would have just been a cute little baby being a cute little baby. But I'd been home for a couple of months, and she grabbed a CD case from close to where her books were. She didn't realize it was just a CD case. She thought it was a book. And she's crawling. She just like started crawling real well, and she's crawling towards me, trying to hold the CD case. Trying to hold the CD case and get it to me so that I could read to her. Fuck. Pardon me. And I knew I wasn't going to let it be like that. She thought it was a book. Her mom thought it was cute. I was crying. Like I'm trying not to now because I saw it for what it was. She went through all that effort to get it to me. Because even as a little kid, you know, she saw, you know, I got to bring this to Daddy in order to get read to. I can't let it be like that. So I started working out. I started figuring out how to get back in my chair from the floor. I started figuring out how to transfer between things without using a slide board, which is this hard board that you put between the things and you slide over it. I learned how to boost, which is picking myself up with just my arms. At this time, I still had a useless right leg, and I did my best to build it up, and it never came back. I had to wait to handle that. I worked out, and I worked out, and I worked out, and I got stronger, and I got stronger, and I got stronger. More and more able. I went from being able to grab her books myself to being able to pick her up, being able to do everything I used to do. Difficult, more difficult, for sure, for sure. Life from a wheelchair is hard. But I figured it out. I made it work. For her. And then for myself. Then my wait for Medicare to kick in ended. They make you wait 2 years for your Medicare to kick in. And as soon as it did, I told my orthopedic doctor to cut my right leg off just above the knee. Because by that point, I had trained in a prosthetic on my left side, full leg prosthetic, and I had this right side in a brace. And the brace was so difficult to use, so uncomfortable, so painful, that there was never a hope of walking. Never. Not as long as I had that right leg. Without the brace, my right leg never would be able to be strong enough to hold my weight up. The muscle tissue was just didn't exist. Muscle tissue doesn't grow back. Once they cut out those muscle fibers, they're gone. They're gone. So I finally was able to get my right leg cut off above the knee. And that's why I am now a double amputee. I continue to work out. I continue to work hard. Not just in physicality, but I do volunteering work. I'm a very dedicated father. And I am attempting to go back to school in hopes of maybe one day being a trauma counselor, helping those that have been through something similar that can't find their way out of the darkness just yet. Sometimes somebody who's been there is best to light the way. And that'll do it for my first video detailing how did I lose those legs. I hope you guys found it informative. There will be more videos in the future touching upon frequently asked questions when I do my Ask Me Anythings on Periscope. And there will be, humorous videos as well, and some philosophy. I hope to see you guys in future videos, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.